name is Laura Manser, and I am the horticulture technician at the McBride Garden at National Tropical Botanical Garden. You should grow loulu because they are a native plant, and native plants are always really good to grow just because they were here before anything else, and they're a really good canopy. So like as you can see, there's a lot of Pritchardia palms around me or loulu palms around me. And so they keep the weed pressure down, and they really grow well with other plants, especially ones that need shade. The size for loulu palms kind of varies based on the species, but the general size for them is about 30 feet, but they can get up to 60 feet. And their spacing should be about 20 to 30 feet apart. If you want a grove kind of like this, then they could be more 10 feet apart, but it'll be harder to interplant them. So kind of to my left, we have hibiscus, or like to my right, there's a short loulu, but then behind we have native grasses. So it kind of it depends on what exactly you want to put there, because they do create a huge canopy, which draws a lot of shade. The other thing about loulu, if you decide to get one, is they're kind of slow growing, but again, that varies on species. However, the loulu next to me, I've probably seen it the last 5 years, and it hasn't really grown too much since this. And so it depends on the environment they're placed in and the altitude they're placed in for how fast they'll grow. Loulu requires full sun, although in a higher altitude, they might require a little more shade. To find out what higher altitude would be for that loulu, just find out what species you're getting when you pick up one from a plant sale. And then you can, they should know about how high this plant should be planted and if it'll need shade or not. But generally, they enjoy full sun. If they have shade, then they might start spotting a little bit too, just because they're suffering a little. So for watering loulu, when you first plant it, it will probably need watering like every other day or every day if you're on more of the west side where it's drier. If you're on more of the north end where it's wetter, you probably don't have to water it that much, like maybe even once every 4 or 5 days. Basically, you would just stick your finger deep in the soil next to it if you want to keep a vigilant eye on it, just to see how moist it is. And if it's like fairly-ish moist, then you're probably fine. As they grow bigger, kind of like these guys, they probably go like months sometimes without water, and they do fine. They don't like it, but they won't die. They just might wilt a little bit. So for long-term care and maintenance of loulu, one big thing that Kauai has come across is coconut rhinoceros beetle. You'll see it maybe as CRB. And so right now we're doing mechanical treatments, so mechanical as in netting. So we're just wrapping a black bird's net kind of around the crown and in all of the little spaces between the leaves. Just because then the coconut rhinoceros beetle, if it gets on your plant, it gets stuck before it can eat through the core. If anything eats through the core of a palm tree, and takes out the spear or the eye in the middle, then the palm will instantly be dead. Like there's no recovering from that. So really just netting around your tree will help a lot. In terms of chemical treatment, you can use a systemic, but that's more discouraged because the mechanical treatment with the netting is doing so well, especially if you only have a couple of them too. And also in terms of long-term, so loulu kind of grow out of the ground and their roots show a little bit. And so as they grow, you can kind of hill them up with dirt. So you can like put more dirt around the base as they continue growing up. And that makes them be a little more stable. Because of so many pests that like to eat loulu, you should leave the dead fronds on. Really, what we suggest is only take the dead fronds off if when you tug it, it's very it basically just falls off when you tug it. But if you tug it and it gives the slightest amount of resistance, then just leave it on, because essentially when you take off a frond that might have even a little bit of life, it lets out a pheromone, and that pheromone attracts a lot of insects that can eat through the eye and kill the tree. One really cool thing with the dead fronds, you don't have to think of them as green waste. They're really nice actually to place around the bases of loulu trees, and that keeps the weeds down. They act kind of like an organic tarp. And lastly, one thing that is seen a lot with loulu is you might see yellow spotting or yellow bands on your trees, and that just means they have a potassium or a magnesium deficiency. So just give them, treat them with some potassium or magnesium, or you could even do a soil test, but if you just give them a little bit, then they should be better. They do uptake slowly, so it might take a while to see the treatment work.